I'm a Boothe. I don't own the store, but I can't apply for the giveaway, so I guess, lucky for you. We're going to try to have some fun here and keep this interesting so that this half hour won't just be a wait till they give away some free guitars. So, my name's Ross. One of my titles in life is professional songwriter. I have the blessing of being able to write for some really fun artists in a really wide variety of genres. So my work has been pop as well as classical, religious, Christian, as well as theater music. And so a lot of what I've done has been pretty widespread. But the great thing about songs is that in many cases the principles apply across genres. Yeah, the principles of what makes a great song apply across genres, and then we make little tweaks depending on what the genre is. For example, if I had a Bluetooth speaker, I would play for you a couple of song samples here. But as an example, in pop, lyrically, we're going to talk here in a minute about rhyme scheme and song form and some things, and those apply whether you're in pop or in country or in Christian music or in classical music in many cases, in contemporary classical music at least. But in pop, there are things that kind of hold the lyric to a certain lack of specificity, as it were. Whereas in a country song, you get all sorts of specificity, and that's expected. Yeah. So let's dive in here for a minute and just talk about kind of how this gets done. So we probably should start with form. There's two major song forms. Does anybody know what they are? I know Lane does. Okay, so your probably most well-known song form is verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Yeah? A, B, C, B. That's your most standard song form. The other that gets some play is verse, chorus, verse. Or some people prefer to think of it as verse, bridge, verse. A, B, A. And you don't see as many of those. You used to see more. But it's still kind of a viable form. And then there's plenty of others. We could talk about lots of examples where form is just different. But let's just identify some things here. What's a song that I know, that you know, that could give us some... Okay, here we go. Do you remember this song? What's the key? Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? Who's the artist? Eagles. You've been out riding fences for so long now. Oh, you're a hard one. I know that you got your reasons. These things that are pleasing you can hurt you somehow. What's that part of the form that we just played? That's the verse. B. Okay? That's the A. Now, this song form is actually, here's what's going to happen next. Don't you try the queen of diamonds, boy. She'll meet you if she's able. You know the queen of hearts is always your best bet. Now it seems to me some fine things have been laid upon your table, but you only want the ones that you can get. So that was the B, yeah? Now what's going to happen? A. Desperado, oh, you ain't getting no younger. Your pain and your hunger, they're driving you home. And freedom, oh freedom, well that's just some people talking. Your prison is walking through this world all alone. Now what's going to happen? B. Your feet get cold in the wintertime. The sky won't snow, the sun won't shine. Now, this is a really interesting form. Anybody knows the song? What's going to happen after this?
C.
No, we're going to go back to an A, so this is an anomaly. A, B, A, B, A is desperado. Now, let's do another one. How about, let me just think here. Okay, I just saw a music video of this song yesterday. What is the key? When you try your best, but you don't succeed. Anybody know this song? When you get what you want, but not what you need. You feel so tired, but you can't sleep. Stuck in reverse. Now this song is a double A. We're going to do that again right now. When the tears come streaming, blah, 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 blah. Then what's going to happen? Lights will guide. This is the B, yeah? This is the chorus. You home and ignite your bones. I will try to fix you. Then what happens? Back to A, then B, then what? Instrumental C, then finally we get lyrics. Tears stream down your face when you lose something you cannot replace. And then finally back to lights will guide you home. A, B, A, B, C, B. Yeah? Okay. So, that's form. If you're going to write songs, you want to start there. Too often, kind of when we're getting started, we kind of go, here's my emotional vomit of lyric and melody, okay? And it has no structure. It's neither here nor there. But for your audience to get it, it's got to be in a form that they can track it, and that's the point. So, if I was going to start writing songs today, I would start with A, B, C, B, and see where you can go. Now, let's talk about rhyme scheme a little bit, because songs are essentially two things, melody and lyrics, and then they usually, get built around with a chord base that becomes the accompaniment. But primarily music and lyrics. So when we think about rhyme schemes, let's just think through the one we just played for a minute. When you try your best but you don't succeed, that's line one. When you get what you want but not what you need, rhyme on 1 and 2. When you feel so tired but you can't sleep, again on 3. Stuck in reverse. Now, no rhyme. Yeah? So 1, 2, 3 rhymed. 4 is a hanger. Why? We're going to get it on 8. Yeah? When the tears come streaming down your face, lose something you can't replace. 5, 6. When you love someone but it goes to waste. 7. Could it be worse? Which rhymes with reverse. Okay, then chorus. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And fix you is the hanger that never gets resolved. Yeah? So, that's one sample rhyme scheme. There's a million ways to do this. Let me give you a couple of samples from songs I've worked on recently. This is a song that was just cut as a summer song for the One Voice Children's Choir. You should check it out. It's on YouTube. It's actually on all the digital service providers, so you can stream it wherever you get music. It's called No Plan B. So this rhyme scheme is: pack all your bags tonight, we're leaving. Hang up a roof of this worn out Jeep and driving all night, alive and free, just you and me and no plan B. Okay, so like this is kind of a nuanced rhyme scheme. Hear it again. Pack all our bags tonight, we're leaving. Okay, then hang out the roof of this worn out Jeep and, okay, now notice, atypical there, right? Could have been leaving and breathing, okay? But Jeep and, it works because we're going to crash into the next line, yeah? Worn out Jeep and driving all night, alive and free, aligning with those other two, just you and me and no plan B. Okay, or here's another one. It's a song called Kids Inside that hasn't been cut yet but will be in the fall. Back when we didn't care about time, barefoot in the streets were all mine. 1 and 2, yeah. Then caught up in memories, yeah, we were like family, I'm missing. Okay, so right there you're seeing a totally different scheme. 1 and 2 together, 3 and 4 together, and then I'm going to end this. I'm missing the light in your eyes. And then we're going to end up taking line 5 and we're going to let it, we're going to catch it on the next stanza. So the point is, there's a million ways to make rhyme work, but it's purposeful is the point, yeah? You want it to be purposeful. Now, let's just talk for a minute about how songs are getting made today, because it's different than when I started. When I started, we were still in a mode where basically you get in a room with some people and you write songs, yeah? And maybe we'll talk about business again in a minute for a little bit, just to give a sense of how that happens. But in any case, it used to be that a bunch of guys sit down in a room, and actually not a bunch, 2, 3 maybe, sometimes alone, but sitting around the piano, sitting around with a guitar, and writing songs. Now, things are a lot different. You still find that model in Nashville. That's really how things still work in the Nashville scene. But in pop specifically, it's a totally different model. Does anybody have any ideas how this works?
In front of a computer.
In front of a computer, that's right. So it's not atypical in pop for largish groups of songwriter, producer, instrumentalists to show up in studios together. One of my good friends is this type out in LA, and he's had cuts with, oh golly, everybody, Justin Bieber and Drake and I can't even think of them all, but a number of people. And it's not uncommon on any night of the week for Jacob and 7 or 8 guys to be holed up in a studio. And everybody's around the computer, and somebody starts messing around with beats, and somebody starts messing around with synth chords, and somebody starts messing around with guitar, and that's really how the sausage is getting made. So a lot of your really pop songs, you'll go to the credits and you'll find like 9 names in the songwriting credits, yeah? And it's because that's exactly what happened. This was made in the studio live. And so that's a different model. It's a totally viable model. I do it all the time. But it puts the burden on, well, we'll just say it this way. It's easy for lyrics to go out the door in that model because it's so musically oriented, right? And so there has to be a real deliberateness to ensure that lyrics get where they need to be. In terms of the business, just because we're kind of there, this is a really collaborative kind of thing. And really the primary instrument of figuring out who owns what is called a split sheet. And basically, coming out of a writing session or a recording session like we just described, there would be a discussion among the people. Usually there's somebody who's kind of the primary driver of the project, and they'll kind of sync up with the others and say, okay, here's what I think the splits are. based on my contribution, I think I own 55% of this song. And based on what you gave, I'm thinking, 15. And based on what your contribution was, I'm thinking 10. And, essentially we're creating 100% ownership of this song. And then there's two parts to it. There's a songwriting part, and then there's a publishing part. And those are two separate ownership stakes that command different lines of revenue. And so, maybe just to give an example, I had a kind of an atypical deal recently where I wrote a song with some collaborators, but it made more sense for them to hold the publishing. And so I own now 100% of the song, but they own 100% of the publishing. Okay? So essentially, as revenues come in on this particular song, songwriting and publishing is essentially a 50-50 split for your general revenue. So for example, that song is streaming on YouTube right now. I think it crossed 200,000 streams yesterday. And as the revenue comes out of YouTube, I'll own 50% of it because I own 100% of the song. Okay? And then they'll draw 50% of the revenue because they own 100% of the publishing. Does that make sense? These 50-100 things are kind of weird. But that's kind of how that works. And then the other piece of the puzzle is that there's also what's called a master recording right, which means who owns the actual recording of the song. So taking this song, for example, if another artist decided to cover it and release it, then the revenues that come to songwriters, I would draw half of, and my collaborator would draw half of. Yeah. But on this particular song, I was also the producer. Okay. So in that case, the master recording right, which is another revenue stream from music, is owned largely by the artist and the organization that paid for it. But I have what are called points on that song. So, and I'm not going to tell you how many points I have, but a typical producer cut is somewhere in the realm of anywhere between 10 and 25 points, okay? Which means essentially, once the company recoups their costs, what it took them to pay for the record, now, as that turns into profit, I'll draw whatever my percentage is on the master recording. So that's kind of the overall, kind of how this business works. And it's different depending on what the stream is, right? There's revenue from YouTube. There's revenue from streaming on the digital service provider, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. There's also revenue from things like if a song gets placed in film or on TV, right? Some of those can be very, very lucrative. For example, I know of a group that recently just barely missed. They had a song that was about to be placed in a major Netflix movie, and the upfront payment on that for them, and they don't even own the whole song, they own something like 50%, but the upfront payment would have been $300,000. Okay, so that tells you. Look, Netflix is a super Hollywood model. Okay, they're playing that game, but that's the kind of money that gets thrown around on a song. So, for example, if you're watching a really popular Netflix series, I don't know what a good example is, but actually I do know of a series that I haven't seen much of. It's one of these kind of Regency dramas. They've drawn a lot of music, kind of classical pop resets of classical pieces, and the artists who made those have made just absolutely bonkers money on this series, just crazy. So anyway, that gives you a little bit on the business. So we got about 5 minutes. They just gave me the 5 sign, although it should be 10, but I guess we'll do what they say. What questions do you have that I can answer? About songs, about how they're written, about how they're produced, published? Any questions? Yeah?
Is there any money in just like individuals writing their own songs and putting it out on YouTube or whatever?
Yeah. So it's a good question. I'm going to answer it kind of broadly. The short answer is it's very hard to make much money as an independent artist right now. It used to be, look, when we were all spinning CDs or physical media before that, look, if I press 1,000 CDs and across a 6-month period, I can sell them all at $12 a pop. Like, you know, that it's not great money, but it's money. Now, your digital streaming does not pay a lot. You know, it's something to the tune of, I think on Spotify, a single stream of your song will pay you 0.00023 cents. Okay, so it's very, very, very low. I might have added one extra zero that I can't remember. Anyway, you get the idea. It's very minuscule. If you get 1 million streams, it's worth about $4,000 from Spotify. Okay, so it's not much money. But the way that people are making money now kind of harkens back to an earlier model, and it's that, look, okay, so I just saw the Ben Rector show a few weeks ago. Ben's on the road right now. He has a pretty prolific streaming presence, right? He's doing a lot of streams. My guess is that Ben is probably, I mean, I don't know. My guess is Ben is probably doing something like 30,000 in streaming a month, okay? Something like that. And then add to that, he's on this tour right now, 23 dates all across the country. The shows are almost all entirely sold out. Well, you know, tickets are on average $60, okay? He's doing, when I was sitting there, I was watching how many people were going through the merchandise line. I mean, probably he's doing something to the tune of 35 to 50 grand a night in merchandise, okay? So, look, piece that all together, Ben's doing just fine, okay? He's doing great. But he's having to really diversify what he does. He's playing live a lot. He's putting on a big show, which also has cost. He's streaming. He's making YouTube content, which is also monetizing and paying him money. And then he's also getting placements. You might have heard. He's got a song called Sunday that was licensed by Major League Baseball recently. Okay, and it's, you know, it plays on Major League Baseball's ads for this year's season. And that deal is probably worth, I mean, I don't know, I really don't know, but it's like, it's, you know, it's a major network placement. It's probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So he's drawing from a number of revenue streams, and that's really the way that musicians make money today. It's multi-stream and building a variety of businesses or lines of revenue rather that make money. Now, did you have a question? Yeah.
No, I did not.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
So let's say you write awesome songs. How do you sell your songs to other people?
Yeah, sure. Music is a networking game, and you know, the more you get to know people. I mean, there's really two things. Well, there's three things. There is talent. There's hard work and networking, and then there's luck, right? And let's just be honest. You don't get to be Taylor Swift without a significant piece of luck, okay? I'm not saying she's not talented. She's very, very talented, and I think she's worked her tail off. But you don't land all these things in a row without a significant, you know, stroke of luck. And so, remind me what the original question was. I went on too long.
Just this, so I write, so let's say I write awesome songs. How do I go about trying to sell them?
Good. So a couple of platforms. One is networking, right? Connecting with people as you can. That's a little bit hard in Utah. There's not a lot of people who are cutting original songs here, right? In LA, in Nashville, it's a different story. But a couple of thoughts. One is there are, you know, kind of online publishing houses where you can submit your songs. You essentially pay a fee, and they'll put out, you know, one of them is called Taxi, for example. Taxi has a number of clients who are looking for songs, and you know, are any of them really major? Who knows? Occasionally, yeah. So they'll put out a call for songs. If you're a Taxi member, you can submit songs that you think apply to this particular call, and then somebody at Taxi sorts through them and, you know, actually sends some of them on. That's one approach. The other is, you know, you can actually pitch publishers. There are song publishers, especially in the music cities, Nashville, LA, New York, who are constantly looking for writers who they think are, you know, who they think are impressive, who they think they can sell songs for. And so, you know, if you get a demo together that you go, this is my best stuff, I really think this is great, you can always ship it to publishers and see what happens. I'm not going to say it's super common that you get a phone call back, but if you wrote the most amazing song in the world and you find the right publisher who might want to represent it, that could happen. So those are kind of the pieces of those, but really probably the primary path is get involved in the industry, get working, get connecting with people, and that one thing leads to another. Okay, I'll be around if anybody else has questions, but we're going to turn this over to Brax now. Thanks everybody, that was fun.